So if you picked up on the first part of Mike's intro, that was the fun part. Now we got a really boring copier guy coming in. I apologize. But first, this is kind of different for me, and I joke with some of my peers. Typically, I'm not a fan of an individual copier company or individual OEM coming up and talking about their business, because obviously we're going to get up and talk about all the good things we do. We're not going to get up and show our warts, and I always feel uncomfortable. I like panels better where we kind of interact with each other. And Mike said, well, just talk about what you're doing. You got a good story. We are doing quite well. Our business is thriving. The last 6-7 months, our channel business, we're down 25% in supplies, and our top line is over 2019 numbers. So we've been shipping about 120% of what we did in 2019 on hardware. And there's a lot of little things we've done to make that happen. Mike said, talk about those things. I said, well, what's in this for me? Why do I want to talk? And he said, well, look, if you agree to speak, I will not tag you on one LinkedIn post for 30 days. This is all about me just getting off those tags. So, the business is kind of crazy. And I think, you look at, and some shop people may remember, I used this slide 2 years ago saying how crazy the market was. And I just updated it. It seems like every time we get past a little bit of the craziness, more emerges. It just never seems to end. Whether you talk about the chip shortages that are impacting our industry, the OEMs, we're all kind of trying to figure out other businesses to support, the overall decline in our industry. The great resignation, that's one of the things we're not talking about. The turnover, not only in our businesses, but in our customers' businesses, right? For me, dealers and ultimately their end users, for the dealer community, it's your end users. Those people, there's a lot of leverage they have. They don't want to go back to work. Really tough to be selling office technology when people don't want to go to an office, right? So a lot's been talked about this. And, I look at these slides, and this is the industry now at IDC. And, I'm not going to get into the boring, slide after slide. What I really want to point out is we took a big hit in 2020, but then it stabilized. And when you think about our industry, it is not one that is rapidly growing, but is not declining. And I look at our slides, everything that we do at Sharp, all of my logos, all of our themes, I kind of skipped that at the beginning, is that first logo, opportunity. At the beginning of this year, we just said, we don't care. We don't care what the outside environment is. We are strictly about growing. We are strictly about how to gain advantage in this market. And so no excuses. We don't even talk about relative to 2020. A lot of times the finance team would send out a chart and go, hey, look, we're up 25%, 30% over 2020. And I said, no more. We only put up 2019 versus 2021. How are we doing versus that? And I think we got to all take that attitude. This is a tremendous industry, tremendous opportunities still. And as long as we think about new ideas and think about new ways of doing things, we're going to be just fine. And I think there's still a lot of opportunity out there. Now, I mentioned, all of our competitors, we're all struggling with how to compete in this environment. And I think for many of us, the challenge really is what type of new businesses can we get into? How do we get through some difficult times, right? Our supply business for an OEM is our cash cow. I think you all realize that. So when you have clicks are down, that's where we make our money. How do we kind of diversify? How do we get into some of those other things? I'm going to talk about that. Now, a lot of what I'm going to give examples are what Sharp did, right? Every one of our competitors has done really interesting things. So they're going to be talking different panels, different opportunities later. I'm not going to, kind of go too many tangents, but really for us, it was how do we do things differently about the industry? How do we analyze the industry differently than our competitors or just differently from Sharp? And I work for a Japanese company. And so the topic of this meeting is, right, business agility. Who thinks of agility and Japanese company in the same sentence, right? Consensus building, lots of analysis, lots of thinking, lots of processes. Not so easy to change, but if we can change, you can change. I feel like the end of that Rocky movie, right? When Rocky tells the Russians, if I can change, you can change. But I think if a Japanese company can change its stripes and get very agile and make decisions quickly and look at things differently, it could be easily done by a dealer who's way more entrepreneurial, easier to make decisions, and swifter. So, I want to talk about what's holding us back in the industry. And I know this may be a little uncomfortable. We are an insular industry. okay? I don't mean this in a negative way. I know a lot of people in here for 20, 25 years. I'm one of the young people. Mike knows people for 75 years. But we are in some industry. And one of the things that excited me about the agenda on this meeting was that it wasn't so insular, right? There's a couple of us OEMs and there's a couple of us in the dealer community who just talked about fan control football, right? Pretty interesting. And there's some things I'm going to talk about that tie into that. Didn't know what they were going to talk about, but it ties into it. We have people on the agenda from Microsoft, from Intel. I saw one of our speakers was at Cray Research. Sun Microsoft, a lot of different thinking. And I think that's something that the industry has to drive home. We have to start bringing in new people to think about what we can do differently. And then we don't leverage the data we have. We are an industry inundated with data, inundated with information, and we use it to do billing. That's it, right? How often do we take our data? I'll give you an example. You do an install of a machine. You do a complete pre-screening. You know the network, you know the operating system, you know what everyone's in there, you know what their page counts are, you know everything about that company. You do the install, you do all the troubleshooting, you overcome some things, and then you kind of forget about it, right? You put in your database that the reason the install took so long and the printing wasn't working so well is because they have a Microsoft 7 or whatever it is, right? Really old system, really old laptops, really old whatever. Do you ever go, okay, let's get the install going, let's get everyone up, and let's go back and sell them some laptops. Let's go sell them some software. Let's go upgrade them on the other things, which, oh, by the way, will make your cost of service go down dramatically because it's a lot better infrastructure that use it. We don't do that. So, when I talk about the industry, and who remembers The Truman Show? Remember that movie, Jim Carrey, right? He lived in a world that was controlled, and all the information and all the interaction was given to him, was told to him. And so he lived a life, and I guess I won't watch, I don't even remember the whole movie entirely. But then at the end of the movie, he makes the exit, right? He realizes what's happening to himself, and he makes the exit, he goes outside that door, and he realizes there's a whole other world out there. And I think that's something that everyone in our industry needs to do. We're all touching other businesses, we're all pivoting into other areas, we're all touching different technologies today. But we really need to understand them better. Take advantage of all the technology that you use, but the companies, get their information, go to their meetings, go to get their resources, understand better what can happen.